Welcome to the Digital Maddie Show with your host and host Miithyl, a show made exclusively for solopreneurs, artists, and coaches who wants to build their business and wants to build their digital empire. With 15 plus years of business experience, I cover topics on personal branding, content creation, and digital marketing on this show and invite many experts who share the same passion like mine. Today we have an amazing guest on our show. He is Joe Rockey, and let me introduce him. He is Joe Rockey Jr. Created a successful real estate career beginning in the immediate aftermath of the recession of 2009, aka the subprime. Over the years, I have he has seen people live and work from a wide array of vantage points. Currently, he operates multiple rental, flip, rent to own, and networking companies on a professional level. And in the unpaid arenas of life, he runs the podcast Father and Joe, where he attempts to return individuals to a place of faith in their lives. So, without wasting much of our time, let's bring the guest on the show. So,
Well,
welcome,
thank
Joy.
you. Yes. Thank you.
Awesome, Joy. So, Joe, can you share your backstory with us?
Yeah. So I ultimately got into this career path of being a real estate investor. Like I said, right out of that recession, I was a financial advisor coming out of college, and I was at a situation where I knew how to sell. I had been in sales in every single essential job I've had since I've been 17. And coming out of that recession, I had told no to a couple of companies that were accounting places, finance places, because those were my degrees were in. And ended up basically taking the only thing that was left coming out of college, which was selling life insurance and annuities. I ended up being very good at it, but it was a lot of cold calling, a lot of unawesome things, and it basically was designed to burn people out, which is ultimately what happened to me. I ended up realizing that one of the main reasons I chose that path, or that company at least, was I wanted the residual income. I wanted stuff I did in my 20s to pay for me later in life. And ultimately, when I sat down and actually read the contract I was a part of, I was getting 0.1% residuals, which in math means I'd have to work for 1,000 years to get 1 year worth of residuals. And that very quickly didn't add up. So, fast forward a little bit, I end up being in the back of an acre meeting, which is the real estate group here in Pittsburgh. And I'm listening to all these guys talking, mostly complaining about their tenants. And at the end of the day, I'm realizing these guys are working way less hours than me. They are 100% achieving the residual income goal, and they're all making more money than me right now. So why am I not doing this? Roughly 2 weeks later, I bought my first flip and I went all in. So I liquidated all the savings that I had made from selling the life insurance and annuities, and we jumped into doing our first flip. And it's not an easy industry by any stretch, despite what the TV makes it look like. When I began, it was 97% of the people who do their first flip will never do a second. And that's because there's a million ways you can fail, like any business, really. But when there's people on TV who make it look so easy and think that you can do anything you want with it, it really makes the failure rate that much more. Um, Plus, the nature of selling, multiple six-figure houses invites people who think they can do any get-rich scheme, period, without doing the work of a business. So there's a lot of compounding reasons why there's a lot of failure in mind that, you know, I'm here over a decade later, knowing what we did and how we did it well, and very glad of where we're at.
Awesome, Jay. That's really great. So, Joe, as you say, you have a background into finance and within the journey of insurance and now into real estate. So if everything boils down is all about selling, so that means that's your hardcore. So
Yeah.
how do you sell better?
Well, you got to recognize what you're good at and what you're not. First off, I mean, so everyone kind of realizes that there's basic components to a sale. You need to be in front of someone. You have to have a potential customer there, and admittedly, up front, that is the part I'm the absolute worst at. I tell that to everyone. So, you have you got your product and your service. You got to convince the person to buying it. That's essentially, the art of the sale. That's the part that I'm really good at. Then you got to have a way to follow through that whatever service you did sell is able to actually do it and perform. So, take the entire complex sale process and break it into those three categories. I know that I'm not great at the prospecting side. That's why I create partners or create partnerships that have partners that are very good at it. And that's to me the most important part. Don't find someone who's the same as you, find someone who's the opposite of you that wants to do the stuff that you don't want to do. And for me at least, the reason I don't like doing the prospecting stuff is I'm not very good at it. Like I mentioned, and when I was selling the life insurance, I was doing cold calling like crazy. Well, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week of cold calling people will really burn you out. But there's people that have found out way better systems, way better than that. So that's where I start with is I find people who are there. And then as far as the actual doing the sale, I do some unique things there to get better at it that for whatever reason my competition will not do, even though it's more profitable and saves you time. In my world, I show people exactly what they're about to experience. So let's see this property before we drive out there together and see it. And when we're talking about dealing with tenants, you never know what's going to be a turn off or turn on for someone. But if I can have someone watch the video on their phone, see exactly what the house is, and then I don't got to drive out to them, I actually can skip the step of the initial showing and then have them use the video as the initial showing and then go immediately into the background process that we do to make sure that these people don't get evicted, the police aren't going to show up and stuff like that. So for me, it takes a giant time consuming, not profitable step off of my plate. And then in terms of the actual business management side, making the product or service be presentable, that's my entire business is set up to take away the issues that are time consuming but not profitable and remove them. Some of the things that just flat out need to be done, you outsource to other people, but most of it we found was just a waste of time. So we got rid of it altogether and keep trimming out the problems. You get to the real core real quick. And when you're dealing with only the successful and profitable parts of the business, it really kind of will grow it exponentially to the degree that you put yourself into it.
Wow, that's brilliant, and I think that's crucial. Also, it's very fundamental. Thank you, Joy.
Thank
So, like from selling, I would now like to come to something called as buying. So,
you.
according to you, Joe, what makes a property worth buying?
Yeah, so for me, it's all about the math behind it. Because at the end of the day, no matter where you're at in this world, there's just certain geographical things that people care about and don't care about. So here in Pittsburgh, basically every house is either built before World War II or it was built during the modern era, if you will. So when you're looking at that situation, you have to know about foundations because they're all sandstone foundations. The joys of having all of these creeks and rivers around is they're great for settling back in the day, but they also create a lot of hills and a lot of movement of the soil and stuff like that. So you got to know foundations, and they are unfortunately a very expensive thing that just has to be done. So no one really cares if it's pretty or not, but if it doesn't work, you don't have the possibility of a sale. But if it does work, it's there. So the first thing for me that I make sure is the important stuff that has to be done that I'm not going to get paid for to fix it at least acceptable. I'm not saying it's got to be the Taj Mahal, but it's got to be acceptable that this house isn't going to go anywhere. So in my world, that's windows, that's the foundation. For the most part, it's the exterior. As long as it's a decent curb appeal, it doesn't really matter. So for me, what really makes our business successful is in the pre-COVID world, I would be in 20 houses at least trying to buy it. So when you're just doing that much volume, by default, you're going to find one where the math is happy. And that's where, like I said, getting all the prospecting is I got partners who just fill up my calendar. I show up and do the rest. And back to your comment about sales, I personally prefer being in the high margin, low volume arena. I know there's people who do the high margin, low or low margin, high volume, and to me that would burn me out like crazy. And I just know that about myself. So I would way rather have realistically 10 to 15 projects go from beginning to end over a span of the year and be way better off than someone who did multiple thousand of transactions because there was no volume there. So that's how we kind of do it. But it's really to get the houses, it's old school. You got to just pound the pavement. I mean, I do have ways that I have learned how to communicate with people over a decade. I really don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like riding a bike. I can just do it, but it's you relate to people. You don't bring out negatives. So much of the people who are starting in this business and tend not to last long, they walk into a lady's house and just tell her every single thing that's wrong with it. Well, normally she already knows what's wrong with it. She doesn't need you to tell her, that she hasn't updated this kitchen since 64. Like she already knows that. So you don't really need to get into it. It's just at the end of the day, let's make the numbers work. And if everyone's happy, we got something. If not, I'm not going to be your buyer, and I go to the next person on my calendar. That's basically life. So that's how we go about it, and that's how we've been cranking.
Wow, that's and a different approach and a beautiful process and a system, because that's how when you make a consumer or a customer go through that system and process, it becomes very easy for them
Mhm.
to take the decision. So rather
Mhm.
than selling, you are basically helping them to buy.
Essentially, yeah, yeah. So I look at the acquisition part as the actual most important part of our business. If you don't have a good product to sell, what's the point? So as you said, we have a very straightforward onloading process. They answer some basic-ish questions that we get them to know the ballpark of what is your actual mortgage, what do you know this house, why do you want to sell it? Is there a backstory? We'll talk about that, and really, that's most of what my walkthrough is. And when I'm at the property, I'm talking about their backstory because, again, I've been doing this for 11 years. I can look at a house and just know what's wrong with it. I can know that in about 5 minutes. So I don't need to talk to her about this stuff that, quite frankly, she already know the right answer anyway. So why even talk to her about it if I'm going to come to the right answer without it? So that's how we go. Like I said, but it's very systematized. I know the same 6 answers before I get to any property. And then likewise, I then use it whenever I go to make the conversation. So during the one of the things I don't have them fill out is what do they want for the house. I talk to them about that because it's very different way of having the conversation when they are coming up with it rather than sitting around and just guessing a number. That they get a feel for me as much for them. Because it's not that I'm afraid of them going on the internet and doing research or anything. It's when someone is put on the spot to give you a number, there's an anxiety about that. But if we've already had a conversation, we got a little bit of rapport going, then it becomes much easier going, realistically, this is what I'm thinking. We're also standing in the house, so we can look at things, and it makes it a little bit easier to go through it like that.
Wow, lovely, lovely. So, Joe, I have seen one more thing in your profile is you're trying to balance uh, faith as well as work. So,
Mhm,
you also have a podcast about Jesus and faith. So,
mhm.
I can't straight away ask like that. But then, what you had in your mind while you were creating a podcast about Jesus and God?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of things have happened to the real estate world during my time there, and it went beyond that. So if you guys remember, I know it feels like it was forever ago, but when Trump got elected, it felt like the entire world was breaking to I want to be on this team and that team, and we're going to kill the other side. And conversation basically disappeared, and it became an obstacle to society, in lack of a better way to show, and really hasn't gone away. So what I did was I communicated with a priest because the church has been around for 2,000 years. This isn't the first time that people have tribally put themselves into camps, one side or the other. And then when we started discussing about solutions that the church has come up with over the last 2,000 years, we started just going into every aspect of life. And I think it's part of the way that I'm, built. I believe that most of the biggest problems most of the macro problems of life, society, the economy start with the micro individual, the individual firm, the individual uh, payer, the individual employee, depending upon which category you're looking at. So we really kind of focused really into that category. And obviously we discuss about stuff that's gone on in life ever since. It's not living in the past. So some of our more recent episodes have just come out. We're discussing Putin. He just unabashed started a war because he felt like it. And what should we as individuals feel about that? Obviously, I don't live in Ukraine, so I can't pick up a gun and shoot someone. But what should I do as far as the feelings inside of my head and stuff that we put out there? And it's conversations like that to realize that I don't have all the answers, and I don't even want to try to pretend to, but to realize that there are certain things that are more beneficial or less beneficial. Why don't we try to disseminate that information? Why don't we try to learn about it and think about it? And as we think about things that have been not beneficial 1,000 years ago, let's think about how they'd apply now. And most of them are true. Granted, 1,000 years ago, there was no Twitter or Facebook or any of that, but people still didn't like each other for whatever reasons, and they still wanted to make themselves known and be found. These human nature based instincts are the same. It's not like we just woke up and we're different. This is what we are. We're people.
Wow. Explained very with simplicity, but uh, the need of the hour.
Mm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe, for
Thank you.
doing that. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, with this, we come, Joy, to the end of the first phase of the interview. And as audience know that, on the second phase, we have something called as a rapid fire round, where I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You won't
Mhm.
get time to think. So, what is the first thing that comes in your mind? You have to
Okay.
share that. So, are you ready and excited?
I am.
Awesome. So, let's zoom in a little bit to make it more intense.
Oh, okay. Intense. I was actually going to close my eyes so I only heard you and had no. No, that's all right. So zoom. I got to be right here. All right.
All right, so let's go with the very first question, Joe. So,
Mhm.
what is the one thing that you would like to add in your bucket list in 2022?
In terms of things I want to accomplish, I want to build a hotel.
Which place?
I want to build a hotel. I actually have a plot of land. It's right down the street from me. That's where I want to put it.
Lovely, lovely. And would pray that, yes, that dream comes true very soon.
Yes.
All right, second question. Who do you admire the most?
My wife. She
All
she does
right,
so much stuff that I don't even understand how she does it.
that's the magic of women.
Yes.
All right, let's go with the third question is, all right, describe yourself in 3 words.
Quick, unabashed, correct.
Wow, lovely, lovely. All right, let's try a little easier mode also. So, okay, who's your favorite cartoon character and why?
Probably Iron Man because everyone said he was crazy and had no idea what he was doing, but obviously it works out.
Lovely, lovely. So let us take you to Hollywood. So if a movie was to be made on your life, what genre it would be and who would play your role?
um, Probably Chris Pratt because the guy entertains me like crazy. So I think I would pick him. And by default of having Chris Pratt, it's got to be at least some lightheartedness.
And what genre would it be?
Yeah, like I said, I think Chris Pratt plays action comedy every single time. So I think that would probably have to
Lovely.
be it. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. So thank you so much, Joe, for participating in the rapid fire round. And now, all the people who are listening to this episode, if they want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, in terms of connecting with us as listening to the podcast, as you said, it's Father and Joe. That's on everywhere. In terms of where you can get your podcast, if someone wants to reach out to me in a professional capacity, whether it be to learn about what we're doing or potentially be a partner or anything like that, we have an email set up directly for that purpose. That is the number 412, the word homes, HOMES at gmail.com. And then 412 is the area code for Pittsburgh. So it's not really that original. But 412homes at gmail.com is the way to reach out to me if you're trying to do something professionally.
Lovely. So, Joe, before we conclude this particular episode, what is the one message you would like to give to our audiences?
So I think that overall, when you look at yourself, regardless of where you're at in life, I think that the people truly fail at having the ability to look at a situation and to remove themselves from it. So this is actually one of the cool things that Doctor Strange does is that, he gets pushed and he actually falls out of his body and can look at the situation there. And
Astral
that's something
protection.
that, yeah, exactly. And that's something that I feel every person should learn how to do for themselves. If I didn't have all the biases of me involved in this situation, and this was just some person A that I never met before, would their actions be okay and acceptable? Would I want that to happen to me or to my children? And I think as you start doing that process more and more in life, you really figure out a lot of things. It will make you an infinitely better salesperson, but beyond that, it makes you a much better person in general. And really, that's kind of the gateway of becoming better at whatever you're trying to do professionally.
Absolutely, Joe. So thank you so much, Joe, for taking out your valuable time and sharing some amazing insights about you, your life, your work, as well as balancing work and faith. So thank
Mhm.
you so much once again, Joe.
Well, thank you for having me. Yes, thank you.
Lovely. So you have just listened to the Digital Maddie Show with your host and host Miithyl. Thank you so much for listening to our show and giving so much love. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on all those podcast platform that you are listening to. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit the red button. This is Miithyl signing off along with Joy. At the moment, until next time, meet you soon with another guest and their exciting stories. But until then, keep rocking, stay safe, and don't forget to keep creating content. Ciao.